safe again, because something had obviously penetrated the mesh underneath. It wasn't even like it was in a hole in the side of the coop or the run, but it was underground. So something had been digging.
It was added to get to the chickens. Yeah.
So it was enough to go through, the 1-inch gauge wire mesh or whatever. So that's we've had hens lost to foxes and other critters before, and they're really productive. We're protected. The girls are doing well this year. We're getting 4 eggs a day.
Oh yeah, the chickens are great. Yeah.
And there's one that's an overachiever. It's like a goose egg.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
It's funny because I took a picture the other day, and there were 3, I guess, average size chicken eggs.
Right, yeah.
And then there was one. It was obviously probably about maybe, I want to say it was 30% bigger, and we've been getting a lot of double yokers. So
one showing off.
Yeah, one showing off.
Yeah, one girl showing off with the chickens. Hey, hi YouTube, we're back on. All right, so we're going to talk about some news that are going on around the world and here in America. A lot of things that impact us now and going into the future, including the Dutch farmers' protests. And we're going to finish off with a really good story about Francis Scott Key and how he wrote our national anthem and how that came to be. And that was really, really, really good. I found a great video, took some notes from it, and I'll have my husband read that. It was really, really good. That hit hard. It was really powerful. And I think more people should really know that story. So first we're going to kick this off with the Dutch farmers protest climate mandates that will cut livestock by 30%. Now, this is coming from the Epoch Times. Great paper. Definitely recommend getting it, a subscription to it. Now, in here, it says that the Dutch farmers, and this happened today, that the Dutch farmers are continuing their demonstrations against a government climate policy that officials expect to end many farmers' livelihoods, which sadly is already happening right now, with organizers on Telegram planning July 4th protests that say they will flatten the whole of the Netherlands. Now, you can go online now, and they are covering highways, on-ramps, off-ramps, ports, and the great thing is they have a lot of support, and they even had some bikers come out in the droves to support them. Now, the message calls on concerned farmers and citizens to organize their own regional actions with the goal of closing all distribution centers for food supplies and all major polluters until the government changes its plans. Now, enough is enough when it comes to these green mandates and these goals that they have. It's only going to hurt everyone, and it's clearly happening right now. If you look at gas prices, baby supply chain issues when it comes to formula, supplies, you can go online and look at ports. China is getting ready. They are getting their citizens ready. They are getting their wholesale ready. They're getting their warehouses full. And we're not doing that at all. You have countries like India saying, okay, we're not exporting anything. We got to protect our own people. They had massive droughts this year. I think 50 degrees Celsius, doing major damage to their crops, and wherever they were able to harvest, they want to keep in the country, and I don't blame them. So that's going on right now. You have pictures like this and growing, which is phenomenal. People, citizens, the people, not the government. And we're not counting on the government to come in and say, hey, let's protect me, work for us. They're doing it themselves, which is a good example of what people should be doing. The truckers up in Canada, you had 19,000 American truckers go out there and support. You have the Dutch farmers supporting one another. This is great. So one example leads to another, and this is how we can actually enact things and get things done. All right, so this here in America, again from the Epoch Times, Representative Stefnik introduces bill to prevent adversaries' control over U.S. agriculture industry. Now we have countries, not just China, but other countries buying up our farmland. And what they're doing is using it and then sending it back to their countries and not helping out our own. Or they're buying it and they're just sitting on the land and not utilizing it. Now, Representative Elise Stefanik from New York is introducing a bill to address domestic food security issues and the global food supply chain by preventing foreign adversaries from acquiring U.S. farmland. She's not alone, but this is another good step in that direction to protect our farmland, and not just our farmland and our farmers, but we the people and our food supply. And what's happening to that? Adversarial nations like China continue to threaten our homeland using tactics like buying American agricultural companies and stealing agricultural research to undermine our economy. Now, this is another representative for Arkansas who's working with her to make this happen. And if you look at our pork industry, China's buying up not only the pork, but our pork manufacturing when it comes to processing that pork. And we just had a big manufacturing plant out in California shut down, Smithfield. China owns Smithfield, and they own a big plant in California that they just shut down. So if you can keep your freezers full, your pantries full, and do this on the weekly, please do so. Now, Washington must realize that the agricultural security is national security, and we have a duty to protect our food supply and those who produce it. Experts have previously told the Epoch Times that Chinese farmland investments in the United States could allow the regime to stage espionage campaigns against America. So again, this is common sense, and we all know that common sense isn't common. But again, take care of yourself first. Create your own gardens. Garden where you can, when you can. Indoor, when it comes to sprouting, that takes 3 to 5 days, and you have nutritious food at the ready. If you have a garden, keep it going, keep it healthy, rotate the land. If you can expand on it, yeah, do so. Get creative. There's so many people online with a wealth of resources and information that have been there and done that. So utilize them, get that information going, help out one another, work with families, you can get the kids involved. I mean, our daughter loves working in the garden. She loves getting her hands dirty, especially with the chickens, collecting eggs, feeding their, putting their food out, their water. These are good responsibilities that they can work with and build upon. So, risk to the Eurozone recession rises as gas rationing looms, and this is coming from Fitch Ratings. Now, this is the likelihood of gas rationing in Europe has increased significantly following the recent disruption of the Russian national gas supplies through the Nord Stream 1 pipeline. The technical recession in the Eurozone is now increasing. So not just in Europe, but this is everywhere. This is global. In our June Global Economic Outlook, our growth forecast for the Eurozone is at 2.6%. So nowhere near what a lot of economists would like to see those numbers. That's everywhere, unfortunately. The EU's plans to raise gas in storage is 80% of capacity. So again, it's almost like a little too little too late. When you do these green initiatives, they don't have backup plans and to get them ready, to wean down one and then to get ready to introduce the one that they have, that they want to have in hand and that they want to implement. So they are shutting off nuclear sites, they are shutting off coal plants with nothing at the ready to keep people both warm and electricity flowing. So it's not just in Europe, but here in America where there's going to be rolling blackouts at sometimes the worst times. So again, if you have generators, have extra gas on hand, rotate that gas, keep it in a safe location and treat it. Another article, rationing has already started, as Earth plunges into a horrific economic nightmare. Now we're getting to the economics of it. Now, if countries in Europe are already beginning to ration certain things due to supply chain problems, this is going to be a broken record. How long will it be before it starts happening in the United States? There is no date, really, when it comes to that stuff. We already know we have issues now. If you go to the grocery store and you see a lot of fronting that's going on, basically keeping a very thin, small supply of food and supplies at the front of the shelves, but then there's not much behind it, if anything. So they're constantly having to replenish it and keep things at the front. So if you can, please, like I said before, on a weekly basis, keep your pantry full. Now, but the last couple of years have shown us that the painful shortages can happen to wealthy countries in the Western world too. At first, we were told that it was temporary. What was it called when the Fed came out and just said, hey, it's transitory? Yeah, well, yeah. Whenever the government says anything's temporary, it's like our state's income tax. That was temporary back in 1990.
I thought it was before then. It feels like it's longer than that.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's one of those when you get used to it. All right, so it's this year, but the months went by and we just kept having more shortages. In fact, in 2022, supply problems, quote, supply problems, have become so serious that many supermarkets in Europe have been forced to strictly ration essential items at various times. For example, is being reported that due to the war in Ukraine, flour, sunflower oil, and sugar were all being rationed in stores in Greece. So this is going to be a constant story that unfortunately we're going to be hearing more and more about. A lot of rationing. Sporadic shortages of products like eggs, milk, and other dairy products also hit Spain since the war began. And major supermarkets including I have no idea what that is. Something and Macro began rationing sunflower oil early this month. A lot of rationing with oils. A lot of sunflower oil, sugar, and now dairy and eggs are starting to come into the mix. So slowly, incrementally, one item after another.
Were they talking about a $12 a dozen egg future? I mean, it's kind of...
A couple months ago.
Yeah. It's going to be $1 an egg.
Oh, and the gas, or the oil. JP Morgan just came up with this article right here, talking about $380 a barrel potentially. It says JP Morgan sees stratosphere $380 oil on worst case Russian cut. So that's if they make cuts. So buy a little bit, store a little bit safely, stable.
Yeah, we prefer to use the blue stay-bill. It's a marine grade. The gentleman that sold us our snowblower suggested we use the blue marine grade stay-bill for fuel preservation as opposed to the red stay-bill.
Why is that?
Better, longer lasting. I'll tell you what though, ever since we've done that this past winter when I had to reposition the snowblower from the shed to the garage, I basically hand started it. It does have an electric assist to start. You can plug it into the wall and you push a button and call it good. I actually, after about 3 pulls, fired it up and drove it across the front lawn in the snow to get it from the shed to the garage. So,
hey, Mad Cow Mark.
It fires right up. Haven't seen any difficulty with our engines after a season of idle.
Yeah.
Go for the blue stable if you can.
So it says here that global oil prices could reach a stratosphere $380 a barrel if US and European penalties prompt Russia to inflict retaliatory crude output cuts, JP Morgan analysts have warned. So again, these are just speculations. It's really, the way things are going, I don't want to put anything past us, as probably years past we might have. Anything you see something like $380, some obscene number like that, you wouldn't put any money in it. Fast forward to 2022, I want to say almost anything's possible the way things are going. So it says here that this was disclosed by JP Morgan analysts. Yeah.
Well, crude's running about 110 a barrel now. So you're talking about
that's been fluctuating hard this year. Yeah.
Right. I don't know. 380 a barrel of oil. I think the American population would probably say, nope, not going to do it. And
well, see, I don't know, because we're looking at $5+ a gallon right now. California's over $7, almost $8, they're knocking on $10 right now in some counties.
Right. So what you're saying is, okay, if the price of gas is down in the $5, $6, $7 range, and it's $110 a barrel, we're talking about gas going to $15 to $18 to $21 a gallon, and the public's not going to tolerate that. And they'll do whatever it takes to stop that from happening. Sadly,
some people are going to, I think some people will tolerate it just because. It's kind of like that sheep mentality. You don't want to be the one that makes a disruption and makes, anyone look at you. So you kind of just go with the flock. Well, there are people that are standing up, like, look at the Dutch. But how long did it take for them to finally come together and do something and say something? From 2020 on, this is what I'm talking about. We don't know how long it's going to take for people to get together and say something. Look at everything that just happened with the Supreme Court. Everyone was okay with mandates for the last 2+ years. This happens and it's, hey, hold on. Now women are women again. We know what genders are. Magically, overnight, it's like there's clarification again with sexes. And now with mandates, it's like, hold up. Which is it? You gotta look at the bigger picture here, okay? You can't just do something for a small, it's like putting a Band-Aid over like a big wound. You can't fix it like that. You gotta get to the root problem of this. Take control of the land, take control of your own actions and your responsibilities. The fact that a lot of people rely on the government for so much now, Saul Alinsky's probably doing a little happy dance in hell right now. Everything that the guy was advocating for, wanting to take control over, has been happening. Self-responsibility. Take care of yourself first, your home, get your house in order. So this has been a mixed blessing. A lot of people are waking up saying, hey, hold up, it's like online schools. A lot of parents looked at their children saying, okay, what am I hearing? What am I seeing? What's my kid learning about over here? Homeschooling has been on the rise in tremendous numbers, which is great, but at what cost? I mean, how long did it take us to get here to say, hey, what's my kid learning? What's my kid involved in? CRT, equity, all this stuff that's happening in schools right now.
If there was one good thing that came out of COVID, it was the discovery of how bad the public education system is and how possible it is to homeschool your kids. I mean, that was our goal from the beginning, to homeschool. So when everything happened and school shut down, guys would work with them and say, hey, what are you going to do? It's like, it's Tuesday. We're going to keep doing what we did yesterday because we've been homeschooling since birth. And I made 4 predictions when COVID kicked in, and one of them was that there's going to be an uptick in homeschooling because parents are figuring out that, hey, I can do it, and it's better, and I can determine what I'm teaching my kid, whether it's history or religion or all this other stuff that for a long time parents were pretty oblivious to what their kids were absorbing in school.
There's a lot of blessings that came out of this, but like I said, it just feels late, but I guess at this point, better late than never. I mean, there's a lot of people who have woken up to many different facets, not just with online public schools, but with the government in general, how things are run, how elections are handled, and even on the local level too. So it's been very enlightening for a lot of people, but at the same time, you got to keep that pedal down and keep working. You can't just say, all right, well, I've done this, and this, let's just go back to status quo. That's gone. You can't go back to status quo. That doesn't exist anymore. The way things are right now, that doesn't exist. So if you stay enlightened, you stay educated, you stay focused on the information that you have now found, keep bettering yourself, better your home, better your future. You're going to be so much stronger and better for this. I think the key thing now is just work on you, get your house in order, work at the things that you need to get done now. Again, with supplies and issues, I don't know. It's really weird. I feel like between, I want to say now and probably 24, it almost feels like the eye of the storm. It's kind of calm right now. Things are very challenging. There's challenges. Don't get me wrong. Baby supply chain, formula shortages, supply issues, the fronting that we see at the grocery store and whatnot. But if you could take advantage of things still being there, even though prices are still rising, if you can just keep building and just accumulating and making this stuff happen, you're going to be stressing a little less in the future, sleeping a little bit better in the future. So again, they're just options that you're going to have. All right, a couple more things, and then we'll actually, this is the last story, and then we're going to read the Francis Scott Key story. It's really good. Very interesting thing that popped up a couple days ago. The swarm of earthquakes hitting South Carolina are getting stronger. Now, this kind of fluctuates back and forth. There are 40 plus volcanoes that are active right now and growing in interesting locations. But New Madrid was popping off for quite a while. That is always in the back of my mind. But this one actually made epoch times. It's a so-called earthquake swarm that is hitting South Carolina appears to be getting stronger, researchers said this week. 2 earthquakes with a magnitude of 3.5 and 3.6, respectively, hit Wednesday close to Elgin, South Carolina, according to U.S. Geological Survey. Days before that, a 3.4 hit another part of the state, and a 3.9 struck near the Georgia-South Carolina state line on June 18th. Now, so storms happen in all seismic regions, and earthquakes continue until they stop. Obviously, they may not seem helpful, but knowing this can help. So depending on where you live, what is normal, what's not normal, I'd love to hear some people who live in those areas email or chime in the comment section about what's normal, what's not normal, maybe things that we just haven't heard yet. But a 7.1 magnitude earthquake was reported in Charleston in 1886, killing at least 60 people. And what's really interesting is I have a book talking about the, it's around here somewhere, the lost earthquake of 18 1812, and that was New Madrid. And it talked about first-hand accounts of bloggers and people riding up and down the Mississippi for work. And this should be a movie. The great detail that goes into that is really fascinating. But everything comes in cycles, both earth, politics, and life in general. And I think the way things are going with people's mindsets, that it feels like we're entering into winter. Because with winter comes struggle and a lot of work. And from that, you gain a lot of perspective when it comes to what's important in life and what needs to be worked upon. And then through that comes springtime, where things are getting better, things are becoming more stable. And then there's summer. Everything's awesome. Feels like everything is perfect. And then fall is when I think we start to lose our ways. We start to lose that perspective. We start to, unfortunately, lose sight of what we fought so hard for and put into perspective. And it feels like we've left fall and we've entered into winter. We're going to have a lot of challenges and issues. So do you want to read I want to end it with the Francis Scott Key story. All right, let me know if you guys can hear.
I hope I can do this justice. I've read ahead to see what this is about. And I've learned a lot in this.
Yeah,
there was a
really
lawyer
good.
once. His name was Francis Scott Key. He penned a song that I'm sure you're aware of. You've seen it in most hymnals throughout our churches. It's called the National Anthem. It is our song as an American. We go to a ball game, we stand at our church services, and we sing the words of that song, and they float over our minds, on our lips, and we don't even realize what we're singing. Most of us have memorized it as a child, but we've never really thought about what it means. Let me tell you a story. Francis Scott Key was a lawyer in Baltimore. The colonies were engaged in vicious conflict with Britain. Because of this conflict and the protractedness of it, they had accumulated prisoners on both sides. The American colonies had prisoners, and the British had prisoners, and the American government initiated a move. They went to the British and they said, let us negotiate for the release of these prisoners. They said, we want to send a man out to discuss this with you. They were holding the American prisoners in boats about 1,000 yards offshore. And they said, we want to send a man by the name of Francis Scott Key. He will come out and negotiate to see if we can make a mutual exchange on the appointed day in a rowboat. On the appointed day in a rowboat, we went out to this boat. He negotiated with the British officials, and they reached a conclusion that men could be exchanged on a one-for-one basis. Francis Scott Key was jubilant. He went down below in the boats, and what he saw was a humanity of men, and he said, men, I've got good news for you. Tonight, you're free. He said, tonight, I've negotiated successfully for your return to the colonies. He said, you'll be taken out of this boat, out of this filth, out of your chains. As he went back up on board to arrange for their passage to the shore, the admiral came and he said, we have a slight problem. He said, we will still honor our commitment to release these men, but it'll be merely academic. After tonight, it won't matter. Francis Scott Key asked, what do you mean? The admiral said, tonight, we have laid an ultimatum upon the colonies. Your people will either capitulate and lay down the colors of that flag they think so much of, or, you see that over there, Fort McHenry, he said, we're going to remove it from the face of the earth. He asked, how are you going to do that? And the admiral said, if you will, scan the horizon of the sea. And as he looked, he could see hundreds of little dots. And he said, that's the entire British war fleet. He said, all the gunpowder of the Armada is being called upon to demolish that fort. We'll be here within striking distance in a matter of about 2.5 hours. He said, the war is over. These men would be free anyway. Francis Scott Key said, you can't shell that fort. It's full of women and children. It's predominantly not a military fort. The admiral said, don't worry about that. We've left them a way out. And Key asked, how's that? The admiral said, do you see that flag way up on the rampart? He said, we have told them that if they will lower that flag, the shelling will stop immediately, and we'll know that they surrendered, and you will now be under British rule. Francis Scott Key went down below and told the men what was about to happen and said, "Men, I'll shout down to you what's going on as we watch as twilight began to fall and as the haze hung over the ocean, as it does at sunset." Suddenly, the British war fleet unleashed. He said the sound was deafening. There were so many guns that there were no reliefs. He said it was absolutely impossible to talk. Suddenly, the sky, although dark, was suddenly lit. From down below, all he could hear were the prisoners saying, "What have we done with the flag? Was it still flying over the rampart? Tell us every hour, 2 hours, 3 hours." Every time a bomb would explode and would be close to the flag, they could see the flag in the illuminated red glare of that bomb. And Francis Scott Key would report down to the men below, "It's still up, it's not down." The admiral came and he said, "Your people are insane." He said, "What's the matter with them? Don't they understand that this is an impossible situation?" Francis Scott Key said he remembered what George Washington had said. He said, "The thing that sets the American Christian apart from all other people in the world is he will die on his feet before he'll live on his knees." The admiral said, "We have instructed all of the guns to focus on the rampart to take that flag down." He said, "We don't understand something. Our reconnaissance tells us the flag has been hit directly again and again and again. And yet it's still flying. We don't understand it." But he said, "Now we're about to bring every gun for the next 3 hours to bear on that point." Francis Scott Key said the barrage was unmerciful. All that he could hear was the men down below praying the prayer to God. Keep that flag flying where we last saw it. Sunrise came. He said there was a heavy mist hanging over the land of the rampart. There stood the flag, completely nondescript, in shreds. The flagpole itself was at a crazy angle, but the flag was still at the top. Francis Scott Key went aboard and went immediately to Fort McHenry to see what had happened. And what he found had happened was that the flagpole and that flag had suffered repetitious direct hits. And when it had fallen, men, fathers who knew what it meant for that flag to be on the ground, although knowing that all of the British guns were trained on it, walked over and held it up humanly until they died. Their bodies were removed and others took their place. Francis Scott Key said what held that flagpole in place at the unusual angle were patriots' bodies. He penned the song, "Oh, say, can you see, by the dawn's early light, what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleam? O'er the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet fly and wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? The debt was demanded, the price was paid. Happy birthday, America. Blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord." Psalm 33, chapter 12.
I couldn't think of anything better to add to that.
Thanks for the opportunity to read that.
And thank you guys for tuning in. Happy 4th of July. Make the most of it. And we'll talk to you next week.